I'm Chris Farrell, and this is On Watch. In 1863, President Lincoln suspended habeas corpus. What that means is that people could be held in jail indefinitely without knowing their charges or how to respond or how to answer anyway legally. In 2001, and then 2002, and then modified again in 2008, and then 2011, various signals intelligence rules and laws and regulations were changed in an effort to combat terrorism. The changes in 2008 and again in 2011 under President Obama, and then first President Bush, then President Obama, resulted in a broadening of how Americans could be collected on using signals intelligence, how they might be swept up in contacts and communications with foreign persons. Here's the breathtaking change in U.S. law that is arguably more profound, more significant than even President Lincoln suspending habeas corpus. Lincoln did so legally. There was an act, and although it was obviously a rather drastic change to our constitutional rights, he was in the middle of a civil war. The country was split in half. That's not the case when it comes to signals intelligence collection and the National Security Agency in our war on terror, which arguably has now raged for the last 16 years. The key change, and this is what everyone really needs to pay attention to, was only reported on in the last 2 days. The online news outlet Circa, in the reporting of Sarah Carter and John Solomon, have uncovered the fact that the National Security Agency has unlawfully collected intelligence on American citizens at exponentially increasing levels from 2013 to present, and in the last year at a record never before seen. And they've done so against the direct instructions of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. This is an abuse of the Constitution and an illegal act that has no parallel, no par in American history. I cited Abraham Lincoln at the beginning of my talk because I want to give you a sense of the gravity with which one constitutional right was suspended versus what we're talking about now. In October, late October of 2016, about 2 weeks before the election, the Obama administration appeared before the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court and admitted, rather sheepishly, that they had abused and misused signals intelligence collection for domestic political operations against Obama opponents, that the collection was roughly 1 in 20 of all the efforts of the signals intelligence work of the National Security Agency. This is an increase above and beyond anything anyone ever imagined, and it directly contravenes all of the representations made to the court since 2011. So there's a 6-year running lie, basically, on the part of the government to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, where they've made representations about protecting Americans' rights and interests, while at the same time deliberately, willfully violating those rights. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court has written a 99-page finding and order. You'll find it posted on our website at judicialwatch.org. It was formerly a top secret court order that's now been declassified. And the language in it is quite significant. They talk about really institutional corruption, a lack of candor on the part of the intelligence community. And in particular, we have to follow it back. Where does the buck lie? And it lies right at the president's lap. President Obama at the time has abused and misused the National Security Agency in a way no one ever even pondered before. This is the sort of stuff that would make Richard Nixon blush. It is above and beyond the pale. It's like nothing else we've ever seen. Here's the sort of the parallel, I think, that'll give you some context. If you have the Obama administration misusing and abusing signals intelligence for domestic political considerations, you can easily see how that tracks with how they used the Internal Revenue Service. They took the Internal Revenue Service and weaponized it in a way to work against their political opponents. And so you had patriot groups, various Tea Party groups who were applying for nonprofit status, who were trying to do fundraising and politically organize, who were trying to send out mailers and email to drum up support. And all those organizations were essentially suppressed or retarded in their development because the IRS got involved in meddling with them and denying them their paperwork that they needed to function. And that was a deliberate act. People associate it most often with Lois Lerner. She's sort of the poster child for that effort. And we know through documents Judicial Watch has obtained that Lois Lerner communicated with the Justice Department to try to find criminal cases where they could pursue individual taxpayers and organizations to make an example of them. And that's her language, to make an example of them. The IRS turned over 1.25 million taxpayer files to the FBI to have them thumb through them to see if they could find anything interesting. And so you've got criminality and an abuse of a government agency by the Obama administration through the IRS. And if you think about that, you think about the depths that that case took on, years old, no criminal prosecutions, because the IRS was involved with the FBI. So the FBI was reticent to discuss their illegal activities. So there's a decision to dead end that investigation. So if you look at that pattern of behavior and then just slide it over from the Treasury Department to the National Security Agency, it matches perfectly. This is a case where signals intelligence and our intelligence community more broadly was used as a political weapon against adversaries of President Obama. It's documented. It's a court order. It was just made public in the last few days. And you need to read it. You need to see what it says, because it documents and provides a chronology in detail of the abuses that the American public has suffered unknowingly. And despite all the guarantees and assertions and promises made by officials. So here's what you face. You've got a government and an executive that's completely out of control. There should be a grand jury impaneled by the Attorney General to go after these people. The government can't get a pass on this one. This is not a Fast and Furious where there were virtually no prosecutions, an IRS scandal where there were no criminal prosecutions. This is a fundamental challenge to our Constitution in a way we've never before seen. And it's abuse, really. When you look at the signals intelligence collection combined with the unmasking that the Obama administration's designated liar, Susan Rice, talked about, she has been disproven by this court order. And now there has to be consequences. This can't just slide by and be let go. Judicial Watch today filed a lawsuit in court here in D.C. Under the Freedom of Information Act to uncover or to obtain documents about who was unmasking Trump officials in that period between the election in November and January when President Trump took office. And so we're going to pursue this aggressively. It's just one of several different investigative angles that we have open. And I encourage you to go read this FISA court finding and order. And I also encourage you to take a look and see what media outlets have covered this. Where else are you seeing this talked about? What's their opinion? What's their coverage? How detailed is it? And that's my challenge to you. I'm Chris Farrell on Watch.